Nathan Hughes mentioned a few minutes ago, today we're launching a new series through a study through the book of Philippians, and we've titled it Shine Like Stars. I don't know if you know much about the book of Philippians, but the story of the church in Philippi starts in Acts chapter 16. In Acts chapter 16, we read that Paul has a dream. And we read he sees a man from Macedonia. The man is saying, come over. He's standing on a beach saying, come over and preach Christ here. And so when Paul wakes up, he gets in a boat and he heads to Macedonia. Macedonia is modern day Greece. And Paul goes to the most important city in Macedonia. It's Philippi. And in Philippi, he meets a small group of Christians that have already believed in Jesus Christ. They're led by a young woman named Lydia. She's a seller of very expensive purple cloth. She's like the Gucci dealer of the day. And she has others around her. And so Paul comes and he starts to teach them. And then we read in Acts chapter 16, he's on his way to the temple and he sees a demon-possessed girl. And so he stops and he heals her. He casts out the demon. The problem is a man was using her as a fortune teller, and now he lost his source of income. And so he's angry. He works up a mob. They attack Paul, beat him with sticks and rods, and have him thrown in prison. By the way, this is all in Acts chapter 16. In prison, he's there with Silas that night at midnight. I don't know why he's still up at midnight. They're singing songs and praying prayers. And while they're singing, there's an earthquake. The doors to the prison break open, but Paul has the prisoners stay put. The jailer shows up, and he's sure everyone's escaped. So he takes out a sword, and he's about to impale himself. And Paul says, no, don't hurt yourself. We're all here. The jailer is super grateful, so he invites Paul and Silas over to his house. He feeds them. His whole house believes in Jesus Christ. So when you read Philippians, this is the motley crew that he's writing to, all right? The former demon-possessed girl, the jailer that's about to kill himself, this whole crowd of people, that's who the book of Philippians, the letter to the Philippians is written to. In chapter 2, there's a very short line that I think maybe sums up Paul's spirit, his message that he's trying to convey to us. And it's this. This is chapter 2, verse 15. We read this. Shine like stars in the world. That's our invitation. That's where we want to go with this world. Shine like stars in the world. And I think it's a great metaphor that Paul uses because God puts us in the world to shine for Jesus Christ in our workplaces, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, through our words, through our coursework, in our classrooms, in our dorms. We are called to shine like stars. I don't know if you've ever been outside where you could really see the stars. It's hard to see the stars in Gilbert, Chandler, the East Valley because there's a whole lot of light pollution we're going to blame on Phoenix. Anyway, but someone showed me the Skyview app. So when we're in our backyard, sometimes I'll take out the Skyview app and instead of seeing just like a dozen stars, you can see millions of stars and you can zoom in on them and it'll tell you the names. But if you've ever been camping somewhere remote, like I went camping on the top of Half Dome once. Some friends talked me into camping there. I thought I was gonna die, almost died. Don't do it. Anyway, but while we're laying there in our sleeping bags, we laid there watching the stars and watching the shooting stars. Some nights are like that, even in the East Valley. I have a picture here. This is our drummer, Austin, was out by Superstition Mountain. This was just last week. He said, yeah, I was out there at 3 a.m., so I took a few pictures. I don't know what he's doing at 3 in the morning out here, but that's where he was. And you can see, he said he left the shutter open longer, and so you catch a whole lot more than the naked eye can. You can see billions of stars. And Paul says, shine like that. Even better, shine like the shooting stars that you see every once in a while. Do you know people who are like that? They come through your office and they light up the whole workplace. So have you ever had someone come into your home and they brighten everyone's day, or they come into your circle of friends and they're like a shooting star. They bring joy to everyone. Paul says, shine like that. So open your Bibles to Philippians chapter 1 and we'll start there. And I'll begin at verse 12. And we read this. Now, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, Paul writes. By the way, he's writing from prison in Rome. As you know, he bounces in and out of prison often. So he's back in prison and he writes this. He says, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me being in prison has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard, this is the imperial palace guard, and to everyone else, that I am in chains for Jesus Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. So Paul's saying that even though I'm in prison, even though I'm in chains, I'm still going to shine like stars. And so I want to start with this simple challenge this morning. This is where I want to go today, is that wherever God puts you, wherever God has you in this world, has you right now, shine. Wherever that place is, shine. I think there are so many people and even a number of Christians that go through life chronically dissatisfied with where they are. They think, well, I'm just passing through because I don't love my job, so I'm just going to gut it out for a little while. Or I can't get along with my neighbor, so I can't wait till I move. I'll shine after I move. Or they just don't feel like their situation that they're in now is a place where they can thrive and shine. And my challenge this morning is to shine right where God has you, right where he has you today. It doesn't matter what job you're in. It doesn't matter what dorm you're in or classroom you're teaching in or school you're working at. It doesn't matter. The invitation is to shine now. Shine where God has you. I think so many people think I'm just putting in time. I'm going to be out of this place in a little bit. And it's not like that. When you read the Bible, there is story after story of shine where you are now in the Bible. For example, in Jeremiah chapter 29, we're reading about the people of Israel being in Babylonian captivity. And through Jeremiah, God says this. This is Jeremiah 29:5. He says, plant gardens. Are you kidding me? Their kids, their children are in captivity. They've been hauled away from their land. And he says, plant gardens. Shine where I've put you. Maybe today you are frustrated with where you are. Maybe you're frustrated with an employer. Or maybe today you're single and you want to be married. Or maybe right now you're unhappy because you want to make a move that you've been talking about for years. Or maybe you're facing, your finances aren't where they're supposed to be. And you think, well, I'll shine later. And I want to say, no, shine where God has you now. I think all of us need to stop saying things like, I will shine when. I will shine when I have my dream job. Then I'll really shine, God. Or I'll shine when my kids stop frustrating me. Or I will shine when my friends treat me better. Or I will shine when there's more love in my marriage. I wonder this. I wonder if we began to shine for Christ right now, if things might be a little different. I think maybe if we started to shine right now, maybe you would enjoy your job just a little bit better. Maybe if you began to shine right now, your kids might even listen to you. Or maybe if you began to shine right now, your friends would actually want to hang around you more. Or I wonder if you began to shine right now, if there might be a whole lot more love in your marriage. That's how God has made us to live this life, is that no matter where he has us today, to shine. I have a short list of what I think our problems with this whole proposition is. And it's this, that sometimes we let our circumstances or people or places keep us from shining. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've been saying to God for quite a while, get me out of this place. And you're just waiting. You're saying, God, when you answer that prayer, then I will shine for Jesus Christ. Then people will know all about you. And you're letting a place where you are, maybe a job, keep you miserable. And I want to say, no, don't let any place do that to you. Or maybe it's circumstances that are keeping you from shining. Maybe you've been fighting a sickness or an illness and you say, God, I just can't shine for you right now. I'm discouraged. When you heal me, then I'll shine. Or maybe you have a mountain of debt you're fighting against. Or maybe right now, a son or a daughter is rebelling or experimenting with substances, and you're so discouraged, you think, well, I can't shine in this place that I am. And I want to say, no, regardless of your circumstances, shine. I think, yes, it's perfectly fine to pray, God, change my circumstances. But until he does, My invitation is to shine right now. Maybe you've gone through a breakup and you're hurting and you're saying, God, when I'm hurting, I can't shine. Or maybe you failed at something. Maybe you failed an exam, or you failed a class, or you failed at a project at work. I just want to say, in spite of those circumstances, God tells us to shine. I think sometimes, finally I have here, we let people sometimes keep us from shining. Maybe there's a difficult person in your life, or you're having to deal with every week, or maybe every day, and you're saying, God, with this person in my life, I can't shine for you. And the truth is, I know who those kinds of people are. I've met them. Sometimes they come to church, and we find them here. I remember when I was in high school, there was a woman that looked sour and grumpy all the time, and I still don't know her name. We just called her Miss Krabby Guts, all right? She was at church every week, but she was just crabby. I still don't know who she is, but Miss Krabby Guts was miserable at church. Those kinds of people, you know what I describe them as? I describe them as, and I'll use our star analogy, our universe analogy, as the black holes of life, right? I don't know if you know much about black holes in the universe, but black holes happen when you have a supernova, a really large star. When it implodes, it will actually create such an extreme gravity field that it begins to suck in all the stars around it. And the stars are emitting light. And even though the light from those stars that are being sucked in are emitting light at the speed of light, we can't see them because of the black hole. Some people are like that. It's true, isn't it? It's awful, but it's true. You get near them and they suck you into their negativity. And I want to say, don't let them. Don't give them that kind of power over your life. Keep doing what God has called you to do in spite of them. If you were here a couple of weeks ago, I was telling a little bit about the story of our church and how we got here. And as I've been thinking about that, I think about this building that we're sitting in right now. This building is a gift from God. It's just a miracle that we're here. Because a few years ago, we were still meeting in our sanctinasium right across the courtyard. That's our sanctuary/gymnasium, all right? The carpeted gym over here. We were meeting there, and we were running 4 services a Sunday, and we had like 600, almost 700 people packed into one service. People were standing in the back. We're like, we need this place. And so we ran a campaign, and I couldn't wait to hear how much was pledged. This was 7 years ago. And the people of the Grove 7 years ago pledged, and I couldn't believe the numbers, $1,850,000. I was like, thank you, God. That's a miracle. We're going to get this place built. And so right after I learned the number, I shared it with someone who, and 7 years ago, this person left also, so that doesn't matter. But anyway, so I shared it with this person, and this person said, and there's a long pause, by the way, on the phone. They said, yeah, now let's see if they'll actually give it. I was like, what? They just poured cold water. And then I ran into our banker later, and our banker said, yeah, I ran into this same person. I asked him how the campaign was going to build this new building, and the person said, oh, you don't worry about that. That building will never get built. Where are we sitting right now? All right, anyway, because there's a God. And by the way, can I tell you how much people actually gave? People gave at the Grove $2.3 million to that campaign. Thank you over here for applauding that. But my point is, there will always be those people who are like the black holes of life that try to pull you down and kill your dream, kill your vision, kill your job. Don't give any person that kind of power. Don't give them that kind of permission over your life. Shine in spite of them. Shine over them. And maybe, just maybe, God might change them too. But my whole point here is wherever God puts you, shine. If you keep obsessing with being somewhere else, in another place, with another person, in another job, in a different state, in another city or different neighborhood, a different house, you will be miserable for years and you'll never shine. What does Paul say in prison? Let's go back to verse 13. He says this. He says, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. So he's in prison and he's saying, but I'm shining for Jesus Christ in the worst place. I think all of us have that decision that we have to make, that in the place where you are, that you will shine. Maybe you think, well, I'm not here for long. Well, shine anyway. Talking about the road that our church has traveled over the years, when Veronica and I first moved here to start this church, we moved into a neighborhood right next to Santan K8, and our church started to meet in the school gym at Santan K8. And whenever newcomers would come into our church on Sunday morning in the school gym, I would say to them, hey, we're just in this gym for like a year or so. This is very temporary. We have this amazing place we're going to build down the road on 20 acres. And so I would act like we're just passing through. But after a few months, I realized this was our home. This was our community. This was our hood. These were our people. And so, and by the way, we're in the school for 4.5 years, not 1 year. And so Veronica and I, early in those first few months, decided that we would pour as much as we could into that school because those were our people. And so Veronica began to substitute teach. And she started to get to know teachers and parents. And then once in a while, one of those teachers or parents or families would show up at our new church. She got to know hundreds of junior hires, would be anywhere in the East Valley having dinner, and it seemed like a junior hire would know her. And then even the principal from the school got on a plane with Veronica and a bunch of people from the Grove and flew to Malawi with us. And then I started, the one thing I thought I could do was coach. I think of myself as an athlete, or one day I used to be. Anyway, so I started to coach basketball. I coached 5th grade basketball, 6th grade basketball. Then I coached 7th grade soccer. Then I coached 8th grade soccer. At the end of the 8th grade season, it was the 8th grade graduation, they called me up on stage and they said, we want to present you with something. And they awarded me volunteer coach of the year and gave me a trophy. I have to show you the trophy. I keep this right next to my PhD plaque, but the trophy is awesome. Here's the trophy they gave me. It's a star. And I was like, all right. The thing is, I didn't deserve it. We were like 3-11, and Coach Mosquito, Roy Mosquito, Coach Skeeter was much better than I was. But it's still sitting in my office because I tried my best in spite of thinking we're just here for a season to shine. And it's just my encouragement to you that no matter where God has you, give it your best. Shine for Christ wherever he has you right now. As I read this passage, I think there's a couple of keys to shining where God has you now. And I want to look at 2 keys with you. The first one is this, is to spark joy. Wherever God puts you, if you're going to shine, then spark joy in that place. And we read that in Paul's life. We read this, verse 18. He says, I will continue to rejoice. It's a simple line. He's in jail, the worst of places. He's not complaining. He's rejoicing. I love this. The same line in the Good News translation reads, I will continue to be happy. But Paul is in prison. Things couldn't be worse, and he's still sparking joy. I think he has managed to find joy right where he is. So many of us spend our days complaining and being discontent about where we are. Some people at work are professional complainers. You know them. They show up at work complaining, and they complain all day. Can I just remind all of you that any job that you have, 80% of it you may love, but there's always going to be 20% of it. It's just the grind factor. You just got to grind it out. It's a J-O-B. But that's okay. Shine anyway. There are some people that show up at work every day complaining about the boss, about the business owner, about their employer, about their supervisor. Can I say shine differently than that? Don't be like that. Instead, say the best things about them. Don't forget, they're the ones that have blessed you with a job. They're the ones that give you a paycheck every 2 weeks. And so shine in spite of the people around you that you work with. Paul, if you turn the page in your Bible, read this in chapter 2, verse 14. Do everything without complaining. Wherever God has you, shine. Turn over another page to Philippians 4:11. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I think contentment is the key here. If you can learn to be content, then you can be a person that sparks joy where God puts you. I think a huge part of this is being able to trust God, to say, okay, God, I don't love where you have me right now, but I'm going to believe in you. I'm going to trust that you have the best for me, and I'm going to shine in spite of the place that I am. I said we see this in Paul's life over and over. If you want to turn back to the book of Acts, listen to this. So I was talking about Acts chapter 16. We read, at midnight, verse 25, Paul and Silas were praying and singing, which is just crazy in jail, but that's what they're doing. Maybe your job feels like a prison. Hey, start singing. That's what they were doing, praying and singing. And the prisoners, listen, we're listening to them. People are listening. Wherever you are, people are watching and listening. And then suddenly there's a great earthquake. But I'll tell you right now, there are some people like Paul, aren't there, who everyone wants to be around. There are some people that nobody wants to be around because they complain all the time and they're cranky. You get there, you see their caller ID on your phone and you screen their calls. I know that you do that. You do that. But there are some people like Paul who everyone wants to be around because they build others up. They come in and they spark joy in a place and they praise people. And then other people want to do projects with them because they're an encourager, and other people want to come to them for advice. When I say spark joy where God has you, when I think of people like that, I can't help but think of my good friend, Coach Lott. I met Coach Lott at the Grove a few years ago when he showed up on a Sunday, and I had mentioned the greatest NFL quarterback of all time, Roger Staubach, and he came up and he says, I'm from Texas. So I said, okay. And then he says this, he says, we're the same age, I think. I said, maybe, it's kind of weird, but yes, I think we're about the same age. But Coach Lott, as I got to know him, I realized quickly he filled every room with joy. He sparked joy everywhere. He'd walk into a room and his personality was as big as Texas. And he'd walk in and he would say things like, booyah. Okay, I don't even know what that means, but it made me want to say booyah. My sons say it's weird when I say booyah, so I've stopped. When I say it to little kids, they get scared. Anyway, but he would give me advice like, Palmer, if you want to be a bear, be a grizzly. That's how you say it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to live like that, Coach Lott. But Coach Lott, when the rookies would show up every year, the first thing he would do is have them run camelback. All right, he'd get them out of the weight room. And then he would call me to come run it with him, and that was crazy. And then on Sundays, about half the rookies, it seemed like, would follow him to church and would end up at the Grove. When there was a bye week, it seemed like half the team was here, because Coach Lott was shining at work. His office wasn't just for strength and conditioning. His office was like the chaplain's office. He was like the team counselor. If someone was having a hard time with their fiance or their girlfriend or their children, they would come in, they would sit in his office, and he'd have godly words of wisdom. And every day he filled that place with joy. He sparked joy everywhere he went. And I saw life after life after life change because of one coach, one person. Now, unfortunately, he's with the Chargers in LA. I'm sure we'll beat them when we play them, but I'm going to be praying for Coach Lott. Anyway, my encouragement here is wherever God puts you, spark joy. You have that choice every day. The second key that I said there's two keys I wanted to share. The second key to shining is to see purpose. Look at verse 12. Go back to our text, Philippians chapter 1. Verse 12, we read, now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. What has happened to me has actually served a purpose. I think when we find purpose and where God puts us, even though it's not exactly where you want to be, all of a sudden we start to shine. Verse 14, because of my chains, not in spite of my chains, but because of my God-given chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. His purpose, he's saying, is to empower other Christians, to grow the church, to spread the name of Jesus Christ. He's living every day filled with purpose. So if you're in a place right now and you think, well, I'm just putting in time, I'm just passing through, I want to say no. If you're going to shine in this place for Christ, then find your purpose. I think God doesn't make mistakes. You may think where you are is a mistake. I want to say no, God doesn't make mistakes. You may be waiting till he puts you somewhere else, and I would say no, where you are is right where he wants you to be. He has a divine plan, and he's not making a mistake with your plan, with your life. And so I want to end with this challenge that right where God has you, no matter where that is, start to shine now. Start to give your life to wherever God has put you to shine now in this moment. If Paul had chosen to grumble and complain about being in prison, we would never have the prison epistles. But because he's in prison and decided to shine in prison, we have Philippians, Colossians, Philemon, Ephesians, all of those he writes from jail. And his letters are still changing lives, still changing the world. And I've started to think this. What if we had the 3,000 people who are at the Grove every week leave this place and shine? What if we had just the people of the Grove shining in their neighborhoods, shining in their apartment complexes, shining in their classrooms, in their dorm rooms, shining in their workplaces, in our schools, in our colleges, in our universities? I think we might change this entire city. That's my invitation. That's my challenge to you this morning. God bless you. It's good to be with you this morning at the Grove.